Hello, all you amazing people out there. Thanks for tuning in to another interesting episode of The Ryan Files. If you haven't already, hit the subscribe button below and join our amazing community. I've been blessed with a lifetime of work that literally has forced me to be able to talk to every kind of person out there. Rich, poor, kind, arrogant, friendly, mean, hateful, loving, you name it. I've had to interact with it. And many times it was in a business situation where one way or another, you have to figure out a way to make the relationship work. Now that skill is becoming a lost art. Imagine if all human relationships were as close as our relationships with our phones. In today's world, I find that people are afraid to speak honestly, to speak what they are thinking. And I believe it's because not enough of us actually listen. Let's face it, when people talk outside of our paradigms today, we tend to tune them out, which is why I find it so interesting that one of the few last bastions of free speech is at a barbershop in a small town near Branson. Now, you'll get a great haircut when you visit, and along the way, you'll have the freedom to discuss whatever you want without judgment. It's truly the kind of environment that is slowly disappearing from our society. Now, when I visit, I love talking about the kinds of things we discuss on this channel. So I thought you might enjoy what it's like to sit in the chair at the Lost Boys Barber Company. Do I agree with everything said in this episode? No. But that's beside the point. Or better yet, maybe that is the point. Because we're just talking. We're actually talking. And that, my friends, is something that doesn't happen anymore. So let's fire up the cameras. Enjoy this free flow of information. Enjoy the Lost Boys Barber Company.
Are you not curious? Who is this man? This enigma? Yes, a man of many talents, but he is a glitch in the system. He spends his nights scouring texts for traces of lost knowledge. We dare not stand by and turn a blind eye to this man speaking on a public forum. It is all in the file. I present to you on this day the Ryan Files.
Hello, amazing people. Welcome to the Ryan Files. We are live, coming to you live from Hollister, Missouri, the very own, the one and only Lost Boys Barber Company. I'm here with the owner, the one and only Michael Jung. How you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good, man.
Good to have you on.
Yep.
I've been thinking about doing this ever since I started the podcast. I was like, this is the perfect place to have this kind of just talking about, I come in here, I get my hair cut, and next thing you know, we're talking about everything from aliens to whatever. But tell me a little bit how you started this barbershop. It's such a cool vibe. I remember as a kid, my dad would take me to get my hair cut, okay? And it was to a barbershop, but like this is back in the day whenever, I'm 51 years old, okay? So we're talking like 40 some years ago. But it was all old men, farmers or whatnot, but they would be hanging out in the barbershop, just chewing the fat, exactly. I find it interesting that we can come in here, it's the same thing, but it's a much younger generation. It's really cool.
Yeah, I definitely think the barbershop has made a massive resurgence in it being a trendy, cool place to get together, hang out, talk with people. And that was my, when I started cutting hair, I went to cosmetology school because we didn't have a barber school. So I actually worked at a salon for a couple years, and it was great, but it was predominantly women. And so I knew that eventually, if I ever got married and got serious about my life, I wanted to work in a barbershop and be, for safety reasons, be around dudes and not women all the time.
Oh, I get you.
So, I went and worked at a barbershop for a couple years. I'd been cutting for like 5, and then got to a point where I was like, man, I kind of want to try to branch out and do something on my own. And we got that spot in Branson, which was crazy because I had looked at it like 5 years before when I was single. I remember thinking like that would be such a perfect building because there was an upstairs that I could, you know, as a single guy, I'm like, I could live upstairs, and as long as I could pay my bills, I'd have my, you know, somewhere to live and somewhere to work. And the day I went to look at another building, I ran into my old roommate, and his now wife's dad was just getting ready to move out of that building, and so it was like a God thing for me. We were able, my wife and I got that building and started Lost Boys, and it was me and 2 other chairs, and then next thing we know, we outgrew that space, and now we were able to buy this building in Hollister, and it just keeps growing, and we keep getting cool dudes that keep coming in.
What airport are we near?
Well, College of the Ozarks is what, yeah, it's C of O.
All right. It's like in Branson, you never hear an airplane really flying over. You might hear a black helicopter. Yeah. But you don't necessarily hear an airplane flying over.
They got some cool planes up there. Like, was it like World War II fighter planes up there?
Branson Airport?
They have a few. The Hollister one up there, man. They actually will give you your pilot's license up there.
Okay.
Yeah, you can train for that. They got a guy up there that'll train you up, and you get your pilot's license after, I don't know, I think like 32, 36 hours of training.
Dude, I just did an interview with a buddy of mine. He used to be my guitar player, and long story short, he fell into this, and he did the same thing. He's a pilot now.
Yeah.
And he's flying, like, he was just over like the Isle of Man a few months ago, you know, flying for this billionaire, you know.
It's insane what you can do, even in a small town.
Oh yeah.
Right up the street, you can get your pilot's license, and then next thing you know, you're traveling the world.
Yeah.
I think it's like 50 hours of flying time. You can
it's not crazy.
Bad, but it's like you have to be like flying, actual flying.
Yeah, like log flight time.
Yep.
Yeah, he said it's just wild, you know, and you learning to fly by instruments, you get like, next thing you know, you're not even really looking at anything out the window. You're looking at just the controls. And
it's crazy to think, because you can either go to a school and pay up the butt with tuition money,
right, or
you can go up the road, you can find a contractor or someone that will teach you personally, and it's still pricey, but it's not as much as you would pay for a school.
I think he told us it was only like, that guy that's your client, I think he said it was like 12 or 14 grand. If you paid him directly.
I think he estimated, because like, you have to pay for like courses online and stuff, which add to it, like initially just fuel, and then like hourly, like all like rounds up to like 9,000, but then you add on to the courses, and it adds on probably like 11 to 12 grand.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, and if you go to school, man, it's probably like 90,000 or something like that.
Oh, for sure.
I've talked to a lot of clients that went through the school type of deal, and man, money is definitely the worst thing when it comes to flying, because it's crazy expensive how much
that's one school you don't want to drop out of.
But he's got this billionaire guy paying for his classes. He's getting his A&P license. This billionaire guy has, it's called the Albatross. It's a plane that can fly and land in water and whatnot, and he wants it, to be tied up behind his yacht whenever he's in the fjords over in Norway or whatever. So
living a rough life.
Yeah. So he's like flying this thing around, and they want him to get his A&P license too to be able to work on it. It's awesome, man. How much does it cost to become a barber?
Probably about the same. What is it, like 15 grand now, I think? And
16 tuition money. 15, 16. Pilot over there.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
And how long is the schooling for that?
In Missouri, it's for a barber, it's 1,000 hours of like school time, and then if you want to be a Cosmo, it's 1,500. And yeah, I think it's probably roughly 15 grand, depending on which school you go to. There's 2 schools in Springfield. There's Paul Mitchell or
Academy.
Yeah, Academy. The Academy's cheaper, but yeah, it's really not that bad. I mean, you're done in
6 to
barber
9.
school, because I didn't go to barber school. I went to cosmetology school, and then I got my crossover license, and so I have both licenses now, but I only had to do 40 hours more to learn how to use a straight razor, which I already knew how to use it. Usually I couldn't use it.
That's the only difference between a Cosmo and a barber.
Yeah.
Or you can go into the apprentice route like Sal, and that's like 1,000 more hours than going to school.
It's double.
2,000 hours.
2,000 hours, and then you learn from like 9 other barbers.
You learn on the job.
You learn
it's better
right
hands-on that way, because it's like that's the only way you should be able to learn, to be honest.
Right.
You get an experience with like textures of hair, because at the school you're only doing like certain ones that will like walk in. You're lucky to get like different textures.
That's what chewed me up the most, was going to school. And I mean, granted, I was thankful for that education I got, but reality-wise, I was in what was called the Phase 2 program, which was kind of the step up, if you will.
Right.
My haircuts were actually triple the price of what all the other barbers in my program were dealing with, and yeah, I'd maybe walk out 2 to 5 haircuts a week.
Oh wow.
A week, and I mean, to tell you the truth, I couldn't skin fade to save my life coming out of hair school, but it seriously was this environment in here, actually being into it and working into it, that you actually learn those skills and actually hone it in. And
right. And it's everybody in here too. It's like, I love it because these guys, I come in, Dylan, who's not here, of course.
Yeah.
I know. And remember the story with him.
Dylan. We love you.
Yeah, remember the story with him. I showed up when you were at your old shop, and he had just started.
Yes. I was very nervous whenever when you sat in his chair, because I'm like, okay, here's a guy that's in a show in town. He clearly is an Elvis guy, and Dylan's about to screw his hair up.
It's like,
And this guy's never going to come back, and then we're going to lose a bunch of business because you're going to write us a review.
Dude, I remember you saying to me, I remember you literally looking at me like, and there was I didn't know you.
Yeah.
But just reading people, there was a little bit of the, oh no, look in your face, because you looked at me and you said, are you sure you want him to cut your hair? Which is awesome.
You said that, bro?
Oh yeah.
Dang.
Yeah, you said he's brand new. And I told him what I tell everybody, you can't mess my hair up. It's a big thick mop that does what it wants to anyways, but it worked out great, and Dylan's he's your longest.
He's been here the longest. I remember that was when Bruce was there too.
Oh.
And it was funny because I didn't know you. I think he had asked if he could take your picture, and you said no. And so he came back in the back. He's like, man, I want to take a picture of Dylan cutting Elvis's hair. Like, that'd be such a cool post. And so I'm in the back. I'm like, I'll take the picture. And I had my camera, and the flash was on, and it went off. And you like turned your head over there and looked, and I was like,
what? Oh, who did that?
Yeah.
For the record, I didn't care if anyone took my picture, but Bruce, it's like I'm just a normal human being, you know.
Right.
I'm just Ryan. I'm not Elvis.
Yeah.
But he wouldn't let the Elvis thing go.
It probably gets annoying.
It's back when he used to appreciate you.
It's like I'm getting my hair cut by Dylan, and he's like, hey man, thank you very much. And I'm like, hey man, can I take your picture? Because he's like, he wants it to be an Elvis thing. I'm like, if he could have said, hey, I just want to take your picture, is that cool? I would have been like, yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
But it was
I
just
recognized you from Identical.
Oh yeah.
Like, because when I first met you, I was like, hey, did you play in Identical? And you're like,
which is funny
Yeah.
because that's one thing that most people don't. It was weird though. My wife and I, we went on vacation.
yeah.
Shortly after it had come out in theaters, and we're down in like Mexico, and everybody in Mexico had seen the movie.
Yeah.
And they knew me as Blake Rain, which is my screen actor's name. And they were just, it was funny to be recognized like that, you know, because most of the time people come up and they're always like, oh, Elvis,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know. But yeah, it was cool to be recognized for something other than Elvis.
You got to be one of the only Elvises out there that don't have a hairpiece.
There's a lot of
You got
hairpieces,
the real
man.
deal, man.
Oh, man.
They buy
so
it.
bad.
They buy it all. And dude, like they've learned how to do the contouring with the makeup, so you can look absolutely. You can look like you, or you. And
We should all have wigs, man.
dude, they'll put on the wigs, and those wigs are, super expensive, and
I can imagine.
they'll wrap their waists, with like cellophane, like packing, what do they call that stuff? Shrink wrap.
Yeah.
To get like thin, and so you don't have it's a whole industry, man. Let me tell you what, it's interesting. But so one of the coolest things about this barbershop, obviously you can come in, you get a great haircut, okay? And I mean that too. And it's so awesome to see all the dudes who come in here and, they're like, oh man, give me a fade. And you got these guys that, I don't know what the name is, but it's definitely certain look, attitude, and feel. But then you'll get like, just some old guy who wants a good haircut come in. Kids come in, get their haircut. It's kind of a really cool vibe. But one thing that always happens, I'm always intrigued by and I love, is I walk in here, get my haircut, and we just start talking. And one of the things that happens, just I don't know why, maybe naturally or whatever, is there's all kinds of just conspiracy theories and different things like that we just kind of get into and start talking about. So is that something that has always been that way, or how'd that start?
Well, I've always been a big conspiracy guy. probably since the first conspiracy I ever got into was 9/11, and I got like one of my buddies had a video. This is back. I mean, there was the internet, but YouTube wasn't as prevalent, and you couldn't just. I mean, I didn't use the internet as much back then, but my buddies, I think it was my buddy's uncle, had this DVD that was called Loose Change, and it was about 9/11. And you know, when 9/11 happened, I remember watching it in school, and it was, and actually it was like a uniting thing. Like everybody like came together. We have a common enemy, and then it was probably a year or two later that I watched this video, and you know that got me into like, holy crap, dude! Like, what if, you know, if this video I just watched is like legit, then it just gets your gears start turning.
Yeah.
And so that was what got me into it. And then in the shop, when we first opened, I had looked in, like, I had seen something on like a video on Flat Earth. I was like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever heard, dude. And then but I was like fascinated by the idea. And so, you know, I started talking to different people about it, and they all thought I was a moron, which it's still to this day, people still think you're a moron if you even entertain the idea. But that was one in the shop that if you want to get a conversation going, you throw that out there, and like people like, usually the reaction is people get mad. They think you're mentally handicapped. Or, you know, like because it's like, oh, you're crazy, dude. Like, we went to the moon, like we've been to space, we've been here, we've been there. And you know, I'm at the point now, I've been looking, I'm trying to remember when, it was like when that thing first started taking out. It was like 2012 or 2014, something like that was when those videos started getting popular. And so I had looked into it for a while, but I'm more at the point now that, and here, even with that conversation, like, I think it's fun to talk about, but honestly, I try not to talk about it that much anymore because I've seen so many like it go bad.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
it's polarizing.
It is, because you know, I that's one thing with the shop is I want an environment where, you know, whatever your political views are, whatever your religious views are, you know, whatever sexual orientation, like I want everybody to feel welcome and to, you know, get a good haircut and us to be able to converse. But yeah, like so with that conversation, like, it became a hot topic in the shop. And then I finally, honestly, I would say a big part is probably when Josh started at the shop, because it was not in a negative way, but he, you know, thinks I'm a nut job. And so, like,
it was more diverse for sure.
Yeah. So it was like certain conversations, I'm like, man, do I really want to get into an argument today about something that should just be like a fun topic?
He's your denier, man, and you're the one that, you know, disproves him. You gotta.
I don't know about that. I just think it's fun. Like, for me now, when I talk to people about that stuff, it's more of a, like, I almost try to lead out with, okay, like, as a mental exercise.
Yeah.
Like, think about this, and then you start throwing out different, like, breadcrumbs that kind of made you, because, like, not you, but for me, there's all these little things that when you start looking at it, you're like, well, I know that it's a ball because of this. And then you start looking into whatever that is, and it's like, well, what about satellites? What about this? And so then you start trying to pick apart every facet of it, and the more you pick it apart, the more you're like, holy crap, man, like, now I really, because I don't want to say that I know that it's flat, or I know that it's a ball. Now I'm just kind of like in the middle. The research I've done, if you, like, most people won't even look at it.
Yeah.
Because I didn't want to look, like, to me, it's like most people, like, you watch any video online, if you can even find them anymore, it's like the same story for everybody. Like, oh, this is so stupid, like, I can figure that, like, disprove this in 30 minutes, and then you do any research. And now it's all like blacklisted and pushed to the bottom. Like, if you type anything in on YouTube, you're gonna see 150 videos that's all either making fun of people that
or
think
debunking
that,
it,
or it's like, so and to me, that actually, on that topic, since, you know, your things on conspiracies, that was one of the things to me that almost made it even more convincing, because I'm like, if this is such a, like, everybody that looks at this thinks this is asinine, like stupid.
Right.
Like, of course the earth is a ball. It's not flat.
Right.
But if you're going to go out of your way to try and, like, you know, suppress information of a bunch of crazy people talking about the shape of the earth,
That doesn't matter.
it doesn't matter. Like, if I wanted to say the sky is green,
Right.
and go outside, like, I live in America, I have the right to say whatever I want to say. If other people are dumb enough to believe me that I'm saying the sky is green, like, you're not going to waste government resources or big tech resources to try and suppress something stupid.
And it almost makes you think that there's something.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you talk about flat Earth. One of the earlier episodes I did, I had on a gentleman named Sean Barker, and he's Johnny Cash here in Branson.
Okay.
He's awesome. He does the Man in Black show. And we have talked similarly about the flat Earth thing. And both of us are kind of like I just can't bring myself to believe the Earth is flat. But that being said, if I'm intellectually honest,
Yeah.
okay, and I'm not just looking for clickbait or just a simple, no, it can't be real because here's a picture of the Earth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, then I can show you 5 pictures of the Earth from NASA where North America is this big and then North America is this big. It's not, those aren't real pictures, okay?
Yeah. And they've admitted that they're not real.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's arguments on all kinds of sides of this, but it's interesting because I knew approaching this topic that I had to understand that debunkers will get on you about anything. 2, I'm not interested in planting a flag in the ground saying this is absolute truth.
Yeah.
And what really happened, what was really cool, he kind of took it from a biblical perspective.
Absolutely.
From the aspect that the Bible seems to be kind of a flat earth book. And I took it more of a science and documented stance, which got into all the CIA documents that refer to flat earth, got into, and then just some of the, like you can't use an image taken by a satellite or by NASA and say that that's your proof. Okay, you can't do that. Let's be intellectually honest with each other here. So it was an interesting episode, but what it led to is really cool. Out on the lake, there's a stretch of land that's stretch of water, clear line of sight that's about 8 miles long.
You guys get a Nikon P1000?
So what we're going to do, is and we're planning on doing this relatively soon. And maybe if you're interested,
I'll go with you, man.
Join us. We're going to have 2 teams of 3. All right. One's going to be on a bank. And we're going to try to be as low to the water level as possible. We're going to have a pontoon boat. That pontoon boat will have like whatever piece of white plywood or whatever that is a target.
Yeah.
The boat will set out from where we are. I have a high-powered laser. Mm-hmm. We will make sure that it's flat angled, shoot it across the water, shoot it at a target on the boat as it goes too. And I have the scientific calculations. At that distance, if we're low enough to the ground, the bulge of the earth, the bulge of the water should cut off the laser beam. So we're going to have the ability not just to test that at distance, but also as the boat is moving towards the target B. So we'll have 2 teams of 3, and we're just going to, do a podcast on it and do the experiment, run it. I got some high-powered lenses. I've got some high-powered looking telescopes and all that. So hopefully we'll be able to pull it off and see. But if nothing else, it'll be a fun day. But
yeah, right. Have you seen? Did you ever watch that documentary? I think they released it on. I think it was on Netflix. It was like Finding the Curve or something like that. And I was like, at first, I'm like, oh, I'm excited to watch this, and it was a total just like roast of anybody that, you know what I mean? Like all of them. It's like make people. Oh, well, they just made anybody that was like, these guys are out there doing like, different tests, kind of like what he's talking about. And the day that they did it, it was like the conditions weren't right because it was too windy. And so if you're trying to take a laser this low and the water's choppy and it's coming up, it's like, but I don't know, in that you have a bunch of people that have done this stuff, but I've been curious to do the same thing because you see stuff online and I think there are people that, I want to be intellectually honest with, okay, I would prefer to do this myself, to know that this is not a biased thing, because it can be biased one way or the other. But I actually, I think it was 2 weeks ago, you remember me talking to you guys about that? Have you heard anything about the Nikon P1000, like the camera that can zoom in? I think it's like 120 times. Did you see any of those videos of people talking about how they just discontinued? And it was like, I think it was NASA had a meeting with, like, you know, say the owners of Nikon or whatever, and then it was like the next day or within the week they discontinued that camera, because you could zoom in on the moon and see see everything. And so all these people that were into the whole flat earth thing had been buying these cameras because, like he's talking about, the math, like if you talk about the circumference of the earth, their math is 8 inches per mile squared is the, is what the math. So anything beyond 8 inches, it starts to drop and then amplifies the further it goes. And I'm not a mathematician at all, but it's like, if this is your math, we don't have the funds to do what you guys have done. This is your model, which is what people on the other side always say. It's like, oh, well, show us your model. Like, what do you? It's like, dude, we haven't. Like, NASA gets, what is it, $63 million a day, and has for forever. Like, you give me $63 million a day for a year, and I'll make you believe whatever I want, because I can go. You know what I mean? And bouncing off of that, like, when we went to the moon, what was possible then that we say we've lost the technology to go back? It's like, dude,
isn't that convenient?
Yeah, this is in the 60s. You guys destroyed all the stuff that was the greatest feat of mankind, and it's like that.
We lost.
But yet in museums, you guys archive, certain things that, like, nobody cares about that.
Yeah.
But something that
historically is amazing.
You literally destroyed it.
Right.
You said you didn't have enough room to store it. Like, that's the biggest load of shit.
They say it accidentally got erased, but here's the bottom line. This is the 1960s, using slide rules and using computers that, were
big as this room,
and have half the technology that's in a cell phone. Not even half the technology.
Yes.
Yeah, they
It
were
was
all.
film.
Yeah, it was all like Fortran. It was all punch cards. But, like, what's really crazy about it is that, are you telling me with supercomputers, AI, all the stuff that we have, a 3D modeling, that we don't have the ability to get the data to? But we can send. We can send satellites.
Yeah.
We can send stuff to Mars. We can send stuff to Venus. We can send, all the stuff out, the Voyager, out to the end of the solar system. But we don't have the ability to figure out the telemetry and course now from here to the moon. Oh, and then of course there's the Van Allen radiation belts, which literally I have video of NASA people saying
you can't go through it. One
of the problems with us going to the moon again is going through the Van Allen radiation belts. Well, we did allegedly already accomplish that. And it's almost like, again, being intellectually responsible to be like, okay, and they show the route and how it went through the least.
Yeah.
But man, I'm sorry, that amount of radiation
and temperature, like hot and cold, like all that stuff, just the radiation alone, I get you, but like all the other stuff, it's like the more, and this is someone that's like, I grew up the same as everybody else, like Star Wars, Star Trek, all the stuff that's like that. You think I want to think that all that's BS?
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like I want to believe that we went to the moon. I want to believe that, like, we could potentially colonize some other planet. Like, that sounds cool as hell, but at the end of the day, it's like, if I'm actually honest, not me trying to, which I did in the beginning, think that anybody that thought that is dumb, but really it's a cognitive dissonance. Like, you're mad because, like, well, then that would mean that I believed a lie my entire life.
Right, exactly.
And if they've lied about that, and that's where people are like, oh, well, what would be the purpose, or what's the reason? Well, at this point, it's whatever the purpose was then, which I think all of it ties back spiritually to God, but I also think that once you've lied about something for that long, just the money, and if you've lied about something for that long, you can't renege on that. Like, you have to go full in even more to make sure, like, you can't be honest. Like, if you are honest about the fact that you lied about going to the moon, then people start questioning everything else. And just from a money standpoint, like $63 million a day, you have, you know, like, you could solve world hunger with NASA's budget.
Right.
Like, easily.
Yeah, and what's really interesting about that too is like, that would be generational disinformation, lying, that implicates not just, you know, certain people, but multitudes of people. Now, obviously, there's always this compartmentalization that goes on in the federal government and whatnot, where we'll probably never know any of this stuff. But it is interesting, going back to what you said before, and I just talked about this last week on a podcast. It was September 10th, 2001, the day before 9/11, when Donald Rumsfeld, who was in charge of the Department of Defense, dropped the bomb that $2.3 trillion
Went missing in the Pentagon
is unaccounted for. Now, obviously, that didn't, and nothing ever happened about it. I mean, now, I understand, like, 9/11 was a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. But how do you just let that go? Think about the tax dollars. I mean, I pay a lot of taxes.
Me too.
And if you don't, you know you're in big trouble.
Yeah.
Well, that $2.3 trillion represents taxes that were paid. Where did they go? I mean, that is $2.3 trillion even today.
How much is the national debt for Americans?
Well, back then I think back then it was like 5 point some trillion, but our budget for the year of 2001 was only $1.9 trillion. So it was more than a year's worth. 2.3 trillion. That's unbelievable, and nothing ever happened about it.
Well, and it just so happened to be like the information for that was the one part of the Pentagon that got hit, I'm pretty sure.
Oh, during 9/11?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so literally, like, that money that went missing, the Department of the Pentagon that got hit, that we have no footage of the plane hitting the Pentagon in one of the most secure buildings in the U.S., gets drilled by a 747, and it's like there's no remnants of the plane. There's no footage of the plane.
Yeah, and the wingspan,
the wingspan
and the tail were taller than and wider than the hole that was made.
And it just eviscerated. You know what I mean?
Like a demolition, man. A little demolition job.
Or a rocket,
Big heist.
And then Building 7, that's the one that just to this day, Building 7 in New York.
Yeah, it never got hit, and it
never got
exactly
hit.
like the other buildings.
Got audio of them saying pull it.
Yeah.
And I mean, what, it was just a random building decides to fall down with, you know, demolition explosions?
Well, and I think on that topic too, like on 9/11, like one of the things I remember when I watched that video and then going, you know, to like talking to my dad about this stuff. My dad's a, you know, strong conservative man, and you know, George Bush, like conservatives can't do anything wrong. Like, not saying that he is fully like that, but I remember having that discussion about like showing him some of the stuff. He's like, this is ludicrous. I can't believe that you'd even entertain the idea. You know how disrespectful that is to all the people that lost their lives or have fought. And so there's always an emotional part of this to where it's like, because I don't want to disrespect anybody that's lost their life in the military or that really did die in 9/11. But at the end of the day, like, okay, isn't it more disrespectful to not know the truth about what happened and who were the actual perpetrators of the loss of life to these people?
Again, it's intellectual honesty. Explain to me, because, you know, explain to me why the hole at the Pentagon is smaller than the wingspan of the airplane, or explain to me why Building 7 just miraculously, perfectly imploded.
And perfectly, most of the people weren't in the Twin Towers that day, and like the guy who had bought the building, like when you look into that and how he had insured it for like an ungodly amount of money specifically for a terrorist attack not long before that, and they, you know, it was like full of asbestos, and they were going to have. That's why he got it for so cheap.
He put that insurance policy.
Yes. It was like,
shortly, like I want to say almost like a month, if not to a week before that actually happened.
And then it gets drilled by a plane with jihadis, you know, flying in. And that you can't find the black box for any of these planes.
No black box or nothing.
You find the terrorist passports lightly charred at the base of everything. It's like, come on, dude. Like, whoever is the person that's like writing the script for this shit is like, it's like, you really think they'll believe that? Like, oh yeah, man, we play it enough, they'll buy it. They'll believe anything.
That's absolutely the truth. And nothing negative towards your father. Your father sounds a lot like my parents, who would.
Well, he's opened his mind up a lot now. Not saying to that, but
it's just they have a very difficult time understanding that, you know, if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's not a bird.
Yeah.
You know, or it's not an antelope.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's hard because there is information being constantly drilled into your head through media, news, television, everything.
History, man.
History that's telling you the way that you need to believe.
You got to compare history. You got to compare to world history. Different, you know, governments, different civilizations. They're all imperfect. You know, you have these governments that have been doing dirty since the beginning of time to their own people. And I definitely think we undermine the potential and capabilities of our own government in a modern informational age.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it's like, the further we get into this virtual, artificial world, the more surreal things become to us.
Yeah.
And it's like, now we can't even decipher what's real and not real. And then when we can't decipher what's real and not real, the more and more we are subjected to being manipulated.
Yep.
And it's so easy for them to be able to do that. Because like, you go back, here I am, a guy talking about the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
But you go back to the Roman Empire, it was a republic, they had a Senate, it was almost like the same thing as a Congress, you know? People thought that was a great system, but even then, people who are elected to represent the people can still manipulate the people and still manipulate their own government.
Right.
Like, we undermine the potential, the bad things that go on within our government. The government is it can do so many bad things, but we almost like treat the government like it's God, like it's not capable of doing bad things. But it most definitely is.
Yeah, I think,
and it happens. And I truly believe
it always ends up that way. Like when you look at every government, it's
exactly all throughout history.
Power corrupts, you know, like indefinitely or whatever the
absolute
and
power.
It's all throughout history. You can connect the dots in history, and the thing is, governments. Well, because like every government out there has their own version of history, whether it's world history, national history, like their own personal history, everyone sees it in a different way. Our own government, you go back to grade school, man, like they all have their own version of our American government. We're always, for the most part, seen as the good guys.
Yeah.
You know, and we have this trust and faith in our government that our government's always going to do the right thing. But at the end of the day, that's not always the case.
No.
It's, you have literally an organization that's made up of people just like you and me who are capable of doing bad things and sliding things underneath the carpet and just acting like it never happened.
Yeah, and it's justified. And it, you know, if you really get into the history of it, what I call recent history, World War II is kind of a turning point in this country and in the world, because that's whenever we first started what later became the CIA. And, you know, it was designed...
Right? Wasn't that
No, that's whenever we brought the German scientists over afterwards. But we started, and I forget the name of it right now. I'll put it up on the screen. But it, there's this, you know, this investor guy that was, you know, kind of put in charge. And man, it was like he was awesome and crazy all at the same time. You know, they said he comes up with 100 ideas a day and 99 of them are bad, but one of them's always good. And I mean, it was just crazy stuff, like how to misinformation to the Germans, you know, and all this kind of stuff that later on then, and after World War II, it was disbanded. Shortly thereafter, though, with the Cold War, you know, that little time of peace between the end of World War II and the beginning of the Cold War is the only time that we've not known this in our recent history. But that's when the CIA was developed, and it was basically about the Cold War, Russia, and, you know, information and espionage and spying.
And these wars are like the greatest time for experimentation.
Yeah,
just like the Nazis experimented on their own people. We learned a lot from all the bad things Nazis did, and we took that in ourselves.
Yeah,
you know?
well, there's so much of
history
it
in
that's
there.
been documented through FOIA cases. I mean, just like MK Ultra. I mean, that is insane, and yet totally justified by the CIA. Is like, hey, you know, we thought Russia knew how to read minds, so we had to figure out how to do it. You know, we thought Russia had a pill that would cause people to say the truth, so we had to figure out how to do that ourselves. And then it expands even further and further and further until you start then getting into, and this is something that it's very interesting to me, we start getting into occult issues. You know, we start getting into jet propulsion laboratories and how, you know, a lot of that science came from occult ritual practices to gain knowledge. You know, there's stuff like right now I'm researching about the gateway process, which is it's literally a CIA document about how you can reach the spirit realm on your own with these books on tape, audio tapes that put you in the right transcendental state, and you can get information and control the, you know, it's unbelievable. But our government, especially since the end of World War II, has really dove into this behind the scenes, and it's very based on the occult. And make no doubt, there's knowledge to be had out there in the spiritual realm.
Absolutely.
You know, and but who's giving it, and what's the,
you wouldn't think the most powerful
what
people
are their
in the world,
intentions
Yeah.
too? You
What's
know,
the intentions?
you wouldn't think the most powerful people in the world with all this money wouldn't research into life and death and the meaning of it. You know, they put all their resources into
well,
that,
they are, but
especially in the
that's
spiritual realm.
that's where I was saying, like,
Yeah,
I think,
you think-
all the way, like,
you wouldn't,
everything is spiritual, and I feel like we're coming, and I don't know what you believe, but like, to me, I think that all of it is, it's all spiritual warfare, and to a, you know, like, we're a part of that, like, in a physical way, but there's stuff going on beyond this, and there have been people convinced that it's like, oh no, like, there's nothing, we exploded from, you know, from nothing and became this, which I think is harder to believe than to believe in God, but that's a whole nother topic. But with that and what you're talking about, it's like you have these people that'll say they're leading you away from the belief in a higher power while simultaneously taking your tax dollars, investing into this thing, because there is knowledge to be had, and knowledge is power, and so it elevates their ability to control and manipulate and keep people subdued and in bondage to just being a slave class society that serves them.
Absolutely. And it's very interesting how, when you talk about that, I think there's a crux of that, and, you know, we get into the deep state, we get into the cabal.
Yeah.
And I think that anybody who hasn't had an opportunity to research any of that, or, once again, give yourself enough information just to test the hypothesis in your own mind and be intellectually honest about some things. There's something obviously not right, something going on, and there's a fly. But
yeah,
That's what it is.
yeah, so, you know, when we get into things that
It's a spy.
are just, it probably is. Have you seen the robotic birds? The AI
I saw a
controlled.
robotic cicada the other day.
That's what that
this guy
fucking
found.
fly is, man.
I am all
Where do you
about.
find it?
This old man was like, heard this thing buzzing around. I just saw it on like an Instagram reel the other day. It was this old country boy, and he's like, man, I couldn't figure out what this thing is. What was buzzing around? I heard this thing hovering, and he's like, he knocks the thing down, and it's like, it's a little freaking robot, dude, that looks, it's about the size of a cicada. It's got a red light on. He's like, can anybody tell me what this thing is? And it's literally like,
You know,
this,
I could swear I killed that freaking fly, man.
well,
Every day it comes
there's
back.
about 5 or 6 of them in here, I think, buzzing around right now. No,
Every 7 years, man.
it's spy time.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm all about the bird theory.
That shit's a waste
All
of
birds
time.
and how they charge on the lines.
Yeah.
I totally thought that was a joke. Like, I was totally against it. Like, I mean, seriously, birds, cameras, audio, like, that's a joke. The one thing that really threw it off, it was about COVID time. It was 2019, 2020, somewhere in there. It was when the government shut down.
Right.
It shut down for what, maybe a month, 2
Right.
months, somewhere in there.
Some maintenance work, man.
It was coincidence. It was about as coincidence as it could have gotten for me. But dude, I swear I did not see a single bird that entire time. And I started looking. I was looking through the internet, going through all the things. I was like, no, this theory's BS. Like, who would ever believe this? And it once again, it was one of those, like, the little things. You start picking it apart, you start digging into it, and you're like, this is lining up. Like, why the heck have we not seen a bird in a month?
They put us all inside and, quarantined us so they could take all the birds back.
No,
like, all right.
I think that if that one was the more believable than that was putting up all the 5G towers. Dude.
Oh, dude. Oh, man, that got scary for a little bit.
And then the light, like you see in this video, like the lights that they were putting up, like all the street lights that are like that. It's like a UV blue light, and they said it was like a manufacturer's default.
I didn't hear anything about that.
You didn't?
I don't think so.
Well, it was this is getting way into back then, but there was all these theories about, like, they were putting these lights up because, like, some people were showing that you could take the same type of light, and, like, if you got, the poke, that you could scan this light on and it would literally illuminate like where you were, so people were like, freaking out, like, oh, they're putting up all these lights and it's going to be like,
be able to tell who didn't.
Yeah. So like when you're out at night, like, oh, have you been vaccinated or Yeah, dude. Yeah, like we thought that was bullshit, and you remember seeing any of those videos of people putting magnets on the, like, where they got the
injection
jab?
site?
Yeah, and it would stick. We were like, there's no way that's real, and so
that did for like 8% of people
guys,
that we
this is before you even worked for us. And I'm like, I got to try this out. And so I had this magnet from like Harbor Freight that was on the back of like a light. So it was a strong magnet, and I popped it out, and because we tried it with something that was heavier, and it's not like it just like stuck to the spot, but we had this small magnet, and so we did it to Josh first, and it totally worked. And then we, like, anybody that came in, we're like, hey man, are you up to date on your shots? And like, yeah, like, do you care if we try something? Like, yeah, sure. And so we'd take the magnet and move it around, and you'd find the spot, and it would, like, some of the people it had been like 4 or 5 months.
Wow.
And it would stick. And I posted it, and everybody was like, oh, that's fake, dude. I'm like, what do you think I'm doing?
Said,
like, we blow dried their skin.
Yeah.
We were putting talcum powder on it to make sure that it wasn't
gently holding the magnet.
Yeah. And you'd push it around, and it wouldn't stick, and then all of a sudden it would just, like, you could move your hand and it would stay.
Yeah,
I mean, you could be like completely leaned over and it was still hanging on to your arm type of deal.
What was the metal that was graphene oxide? I think was what was.
I think. I can't tell you.
But that's just another.
Well, let me ask you fellas a question. Living here in the Ozarks, something that I talk about quite a bit on the podcast, and I think it's relevant, and I think it will continue to play an even more and more and more relevant part of modern day society and the world, and the story that we will be forced to accept down the road. Over the past decade, but certainly over the past 3-4 years, disclosure of aliens has become more and more and more prevalent, more and more out there, where now we have a government that used to say there's nothing out there whatsoever. Now they're saying, well, here's some video from the USS Nimitz, our aircraft, that we don't know what these are and they're not ours, so we're releasing video footage. You have just drops here and there that are coming all along. It's no longer a bad thing to talk about. Hey, are aliens real and whatnot? You can do that now without you being a kook.
Full hat wearing.
Yep. And more and more and more, and you have shows that are, these. I mean, they're obviously planted there for a reason, but shows like Ancient Aliens that are literally trying to
pre-program
you to accept that, hey, there are these, ancient civilizations that are smarter than us and have advanced craft and all this. So just in turn, I have my own opinions about this stuff, but I just want to kind of get a quick feel of what the Barbershop guys think about aliens. So we'll break it down into two things. Aliens, the actual beings, all right? Do they exist? Are they real? Or is it just humans or government technology? If they do exist, are they from other worlds, other planets? Are they demonic in nature? Or what's their origin? And then finally, the craft themselves, the UFOs. Are they made by these entities, be it otherworldly or demonic or angelic or whatever, or are they made by perhaps gained technology through the occult, or we just have been able to figure out how to do this and we're not sharing it with the public? So why don't we start out with Sal? Go ahead and give me your thoughts.
So I watched something. There's a guy, like random reel on Facebook or whatever. And he said that he believes that they were humans from the future, because he said that Earth is going to be covered in complete darkness and they just adapted. So like, if you look at evolution, you know how we had the long jaws, like, you know, with apes and stuff, and they had the small foreheads and they turned in and the head starts to stretch, and it has like that, and the eyes start to, you know, open up and stuff like that. But in darkness, you think of cat eyes, right? So they see, you know, the aliens have the small chin, big head, and then the big eyes. So they just adapted and stretched like cat eyes to the darkness of the future. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So I think that's like an evolutionary thing, to where like the world's gonna end. There's gonna be.
I mean, we become more frail as we
Yeah.
evolutionize. You know,
For
it's
real.
like weaker the generations, you know, become.
For real, like that's what I believe, and ever since I saw that, I was like,
You don't see it as
that's
an
kinda
outside
possible.
entity. You see it as our own in a different reality or time that has evolved
Yeah, I feel like
faster than we have.
probably.
So we're able to come back through time then.
Yeah, that's
Probably
what
more intellectually strong, but physically weak.
Let me ask you, in those videos, the eyes that you said, you know, expanding everything, getting longer, were the eyes vertical slit eyes?
They were, I wouldn't say, more or less, yeah. Like,
Reptilian. So
Yeah,
there's
like-
cats and reptilians that have vertical eyes.
Yeah, more or less, yeah. It's like they weren't slit. They were slit at the bottom and rounded. Like when it gets to that, you know how like they portray an alien having
yeah.
the big round,
Yeah.
like stuff like
Like the one that Aleister Crowley drew.
Yeah, lamb. Lamb.
Yeah.
Aleister Crowley says he was able to get this, you know, and he's obviously a Satanist. He was able to conjure this demon, and he called it Lamb. It looks exactly like a gray alien, and isn't it ironic that ChatGPT's AI is called Lambda?
Is it really?
Lambda, yeah.
Oh, I
So-
didn't even see that.
Yeah.
The skin is like gray because there's no light. You know, like it's all pale and stuff like that. And
Yeah.
that's what I've seen, and that's
Well-
what I believe.
That's cool. And listen, I'm not asking for rights and wrongs, and I'm not here to, but I will say this. Have you seen how evolution is just getting destroyed out there? Like science, even evolutionists are starting to say, yeah, we're going to have to change our ideas here a little bit, because we're finding that more and more and more, like, and again, it goes back to being intellectually honest. The things that need to be there just aren't there. But again, they will never say that there's a God. But what they will do is they'll say, oh, it's transpermia.
Yeah.
You know, some smart ancient aliens came by and they seeded the planet or helped. That's how humans came about. And, you know, they helped our development along the way. But it is interesting how evolution's getting killed out there. We'll see. But okay, that's interesting. Appreciate that. Let's hear it.
All right, man, here we go. So, me personally, I actually grew up with a lot of conspiracies. I had a conspiracy grandma, man. She used to sit me down for 2 hours on end when I was like 8 years old and talk to me about aliens all day.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
And she'd tell me all the experiences she's had when she's been abducted and stuff like that. She was a crackpot theorist for sure. Like all about
Crack pipe
government.
theorist
and
or crackpot?
crackpot, crackhead. I don't know. But a lot of it, I didn't really understand it. But I remember some stories. She told me one time, and this is about gray aliens, or more pale skin aliens, because you got two different type of aliens that we tend to perceive: the green aliens, the gray aliens, the gray skin aliens, and stuff like that. Now I've heard a lot of different stories. between the two. And honestly, a lot of conspiracies line up with the gray skin aliens. When she told me she got abducted by that alien, it was like a white, snowy day. And she could feel a presence on her. Something was watching her, you know, as she's playing outside. She's a little girl. And she couldn't see anything, but she said that she could feel that something was standing out there. She couldn't see it visually, but it was blending in with the snow.
Oh, wow.
And that's how she was abducted, because that was like their camouflage in a way. You know, she got abducted during winter, you know, and it was usually during winter is what she always told me. Every time she said she been abducted on several occasions. Now, I was just a little kid, so I mean, I don't remember everything she used to tell me, but you know, later down the line, I've seen movies like The Fourth Kind. I'm sure you guys have heard of The Fourth Kind.
Yeah.
Experiencing, like, seeing those UFOs, those things in the sky, those lights, and people perceive them in different ways. People have perceived aliens in different ways, and they've affiliated whether or not an alien is a demon or a demon is an alien. Because like you take like movies like The Fourth Kind versus all those what are those movies, The Conjuring and stuff like that, manipulations and demon manipulations, making people float, levitate, possession and stuff like that. You almost perceive the aliens can do the same thing. They can possess you. They can change your mind. They can go into your body. Yeah, telepathy. Yeah. You know, things of that sort. On our interpretation between aliens and demons, because I think they kind of do mesh together in a way. Because when you actually compare and contrast an alien versus a demon, either the alien comes from the sky, the demon comes from below. And either, you know, an alien could be something angelic, who knows? Maybe they could be a comparison to demons as well. But I mean, you look at the movie Fourth Kind, man, and they witness an alien within the movie, and like all their technologies and stuff get like all messed up and hazed and stuff, and they run into the alien, and you got this person levitating, like it looks like some sort of possession, and you're like, what the hell's going on?
Wouldn't that be spiritual though?
But then, yeah, it's more of a spiritual realm kind of thing, because like, yeah, you have like all this technological stuff that you affiliate aliens and stuff with. But it's like, honestly, most times when aliens are using their, you know, their powers or their things against you, it's almost like a spiritual, telepathic kind of thing that's going on there.
It's more of a connection.
And honestly, you look back at like Men in Black, man, when they flash that strobe in front of your eyes and you forget everything, man, they can make you believe whatever the heck you want. And in that sort of sense, like, they really can, like, manipulate whatever they want. In that sense. And you look at a lot of connections, you got to make connections and things too, because like I remember hearing a story from a guy that claimed he was in the Air Force. He's kind of like a crackhead theorist himself as well. I didn't really quite believe him, but he said, yeah, I used to be back in the Air Force back in the day, and he was helping me when I had a flat on my tire. Actually, more than a flat. I got into kind of a pickle, but he helped me out. But this dude would not shut up about how when he was in the Air Force that he worked on this project that involved little men, these little guys, these little gray guys, gray skin. And I've heard so many interpretations of depictions of gray skin aliens that were of very short nature, very small, very tiny, you know, people. And honestly, I can see where your evolution kind of thing comes in, because it could be sort of like a theory of evolution of people from the future. Because like I feel like as we evolutionize, we do become more frail, more, you know, was it a slim, weaker, frail, pale? And that's already been like depicted in a way. All I'm saying, there's a lot of comparisons to be made. You got to look at the media too, because I feel like the media can kind of be hinting towards you, but also it can be misconstruing. So you have to pick and choose what media you're listening to, and you got to look at your sources, obviously. But even sources can be misconstruing, because now, like I said, what I mentioned before, we live in this informational age. There's too much information sometimes.
It's overstimulating, bro.
It's very overstimulating, and it can be too much, and then you question everything. So it really has to be, I feel like us being here right now, this person-to-person sort of thing where we can compare and contrast towards each other, we're all real sources to one another, and that's about as real as it gets. Yeah. That's the only real thing we got latched on to this modern day age of where we always look at our phones and we believe everything we see right here. Now, like when it comes to aliens, man, I feel like they're there. I definitely feel like they're there. We all have our own depiction and interpretation of what it is, but what I'm doing is simply feeling, rather going based off of a factual thing or source. I feel that they're there. I feel their presence, just like you feel the presence of a bad energy of a demon in the room or something like that. And I've heard stories of like Marines. When I was in the Marine Corps, I knew some Marines who went out onto this island, and it was one of those islands out in the Pacific. I can't remember the name of the island, but they were out there doing a patrol. It was training, and they come up on this bunker, and there's a lot of wildlife on this island. You can hear the birds, you can hear the bugs, all making different noises and chirping and stuff. And they come up on this bunker, and in this area, the whole area becomes completely silent. Nothing. You can't hear nothing. And it was like so gut-wrenching, like it was so silent that it's just like they had a bad feeling about it. Like we don't belong here. Like I don't know if anyone's ever had a feeling like that where it's like I shouldn't be here.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be here. Either it's like a cold feeling or a feeling inside your gut. It's just like something doesn't feel right. And they left. They got the hell out of there.
Right.
And like it can do, I feel like it's like, it almost goes into the realm of like spiritual ghosts and stuff like that. I feel like obviously these aliens, which could be demons or angelic, also have a connection with like that spiritual realm of ghost and the afterlife. You have these areas of bad energy and stuff like that deals in that, you know? And you go into an area that has that bad energy. It could have been somewhere where an alien was prior, or an angelic demon alien thing was prior, that had a lot of influence, because I feel like they definitely had a lot of influence throughout human history. We see possessions throughout human history. I feel like they've definitely possessed different people throughout time, you know, and made them do different things, right, and express different things. You can look at, you know, famous figures like Hitler, Caesar, Mussolini, Genghis Khan, like anyone. These people are great, like of great power beyond human comprehension. Of like, you know, look at Alexander the Great. He's such a young man who took over like almost all of Europe by himself. And it's like, where does a man get this kind of capability of, a young man like that? And you go back even farther into human history, and we talked about, I think I mentioned at the beginning of this podcast, before the podcast even started, those aliens from Planet X, you know?
The Anunnaki.
The Anunnaki? Yes. And I read something recently about them, you know, these people who are considered giants, who are considered gods. There's interpretations of them, and you go back into ancient history, you have people who did believe in gods. You have the Greeks, the Romans, like you go back to that era right there, and you have these people, these giant statues of people. And you go back into the Egyptian era and stuff like that, and these, obviously, they're much stronger than us, but there's also like recoverings of massive bodies and stuff like that, and there's depictions everywhere. Now, I'm a big skeptic myself, but I believe there's definitely connections to be made there, because like whether or not those you could honestly say like Darwin's theory comes from them at some point. Like that's a new theory right there, that we are derived from them rather than apes and stuff like that. But now we're much smaller versions of them, and that's another dot to be connected, because we're derived from them. We've become a much smaller version. Now there will be much more smaller versions of us in the future. And that's even weirder to think, because they are a much more powerful version of us, but as time progresses on, we become more reliant upon virtual, artificial. We also ourselves become artificial in a sense. And it's like, it's a weird thing. It's only like a theory in my own head that I'm thinking of right now. But it's like there's so much connections to be made there. And when you listen to each person's story and their depiction of it and their thoughts of it, you get more of an understanding of it. When you see someone else's interpretation, you gain insight in that sort of way.
I think they're just hiding giants and stuff from before. I mean, you look back biblically, and in every other historical text, there were giants. And like, you know, you can look at, I can't remember the author of, I bought that book a long time ago. It's about like Planet X and Nibiru and
Zacharias Sitchin. Yeah.
But like, I think if you look at it from a biblical standpoint, all that stuff is there in the beginning. That like, so again, like you can talk about it being aliens or demons, and I don't want to cut you off, but like I'll go into that when, you know.
Yeah, I guess it's like a line between religious and non-religious. Of like,
But I think it is. But I think it is personally. This is me personally.
Now hearing him, that's more like spiritual.
I think it is. I think it's all spiritual, and I think that even with the bones and everything else of these giant bones that they found, that stuff gets like pushed under the rug because they don't want people to know that like this is a literal thing, and it lines up with Genesis. And if you go to extra biblical texts like Enoch, which is literally why I named my son that, was because when I read the book of Enoch, and I'm not saying it's canon, which, you know, biblically I'm probably a little bit more versed on that, but
it's quoted in the Bible though.
Yeah, like all that stuff is in Genesis 6. Like I remember when I read through the Bible for myself growing up in church and like walked away from all because I thought it was BS. But then coming back to it and trying to go back through it, just making it to Genesis 6 before I'd ever read the book of Enoch. I was like, I want to read the book in its entirety. And then you get to Genesis 6 and it talks about the sons of God found the daughters of man to be beautiful, and he came down and they went into them and they created, you know, they became giants, and they were the heroes and the legends of old. And so when you look at that, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but you look at the heroes and the legends of old, okay, then you look at all these other religions and it all ties into like Greek mythology or all these demigods, because they were part human, part angelic, part demonic.
And in a way, like everything kind of meshes together.
No, it does mesh together, but that's where I think science, if you looked at the Bible as purely just historical information, which I understand why people have their doubts, but if you look at it just from like a moral standpoint and a historical standpoint, all this stuff, I think when it gets pushed under the rug, it's because they don't want it to be valid. Because in my personal opinion, if everything is spiritual and the only thing that does matter is, you know, it's God or the devil, it's good or it's evil, and like this life is a war for our souls to decide what side you want to be on, that's where everybody's like, oh, that's a crazy conspiracy to think that the government would try to hide all this. But if the devil is the ruler of this world and he has power, he's the prince of the power of the air or whatever, all these people that get power are in power, they're more or less given that by the devil, and at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is your soul. And so what, like, when people talk about like, well, what would be the point? Well, the point is, if that's all that matters in this game, if this is just, you know, the Matrix or whatever you want to call it, it's like the only thing that matters is who harvested the most souls at the end of the day, and because it's eternal beyond that. And so like that is why, you know, NASA would spend $63 million a day in tax revenue. You know what I'm saying? Like it all does tie in. And like even to get a little bit more biblical, even though I know that's not what this podcast is about, is like, it makes me think about like in the Bible where Jesus goes off and fasts in the desert for, you know, 40 days, and the devil takes him up on this high mountain and he promises him, he's like, hey, like if you'll follow me, I'll give you all of this. And Jesus never, he combats him with the word, but he never says that you're not capable of giving me that, because he is capable of giving him that. And that's where when you look at, you know, like on a spiritual level where everything, it's like, oh, like these people talking about selling their soul to the devil and this and that, and like everyone that's an atheist thinks that's a bunch of hogwash and it's BS. But in all reality, like, well, in my reality, if this is all that matters and he is the king of this world presently or currently, he has the power to give these people fortune, fame, power, and because the only thing that matters is your soul as a human. And so what side are you going to be on? And that's where I think there's a shift in society right now, where before it was like being atheist was cool, but now everybody's shifting to being agnostic. Well, I believe in something, but I'm not going to say it's God. Like I'll say it could be any of these other things, but it can't be God. Like it could be aliens. Like, and that's
soon to die too.
Yeah, well, exactly. And it's crazy though. Like when you ask that question, like I was chomping at the bit, because I remember when I was like 17 or 18 talking to my friends, and I grew up in church, and I had kind of walked away from all of it, and the idea of like the rapture or any of this stuff happening, it's like, okay, from a scientific standpoint, how would society talk away? And I remember talking to my buddies about this that were atheists. It's like, if that was to happen, anybody that's an atheist that has heard the biblical story of like the rapture happening. Okay, if the rapture was to happen, who on this earth that knew the stories of the Bible about like God's going to take his elect up to heaven for them to not go through the tribulation would not fall on their face and say, I was wrong? You know what I mean? Like I messed up. Like clearly they were right. And I told my buddies, I'm like, the only way that I foresee them doing is them starting to talk about aliens, and then these entities come down and they go, well, we're your creators, and the reason why we removed all these people, it wasn't God. We removed all these people because the only thing that's holding society back is religion, and this religion is what's holding it back. We have the whole like coexist thing. Every religion should coincide because they're all pretty much the same. Like they're not all the same. And if this, I believe, is the truth, this is the one. If these people were to actually leave, and I know I'm getting like far out there, but how like then you set the stage for these entities that come in that say they removed it, like we're the archons, we're the ones that created all of everything, follow us, and they do have power. They can lead the nations into a one world government. Like we're going to get rid of everything, you follow us, we'll lead you. They do have power to perform signs and wonders, like it talks about that in the Bible. And it's crazy because here we are in my lifetime, after saying this all speculative, like anybody that believed in aliens at that time was a nut job, you're a tinfoil hat wearer, like aliens don't exist, the government would tell you that. And here they are now releasing all this stuff, priming the pumps to exactly what I was telling my buddies before. And that was just a theory. Like I had no thought, like I didn't, who knew that would actually happen? And we're literally watching it happen right now. And then you start getting into all these conspiracies of like what are they,
well,
and like I think
it's less becoming of like they're aliens and
no, they're demons. I believe
exactly.
that they're fallen angels. I believe that it's the same thing. Like when you look at hieroglyphs and like all this stuff throughout the world, when you look at this stuff, it's like they're giants in image, and they can fly, they can do all this stuff. Well, when you think about back in that time, how would they depict the ability to fly around in some super ship, or
well, it could be, I feel like they can definitely be like deceivers. And like me personally,
100%.
like I fall in line, like I'm more agnostic, like you were saying. I'm more of the what if person. I'm more of the skeptic and stuff like that. That's personally where I fall in line at. But I definitely I love making my connections with the Bible, the Christianity, because the Bible at the end of the day is like, it's a strict source. It is like, and it's like unchangeable. And I think that's like the best source to go off of. Honestly, me myself, I need to sit down and read a little bit of the Bible. I really do. But like when people get their sources off the internet could be anything. It could be anything they want you to believe it to be.
Well, you can literally say anything and find facts to back it up.
Oh yeah,
literally,
yeah,
for sure.
Yeah, it's like and if you say something that offends somebody, it's like, what are your sources? It's like, okay, like on any of these topics, you say this stuff, and that's the,
and there's not
it's like, oh, well, show me, like, what are your sources? And you can show somebody something, and it's like, oh, well, that's like, they're not even going to take the time to watch it. So I think it's like, from back to the Bible, like, seek and ye shall find, knock and the door will be open. Like if you're searching for knowledge and you're searching for the truth, I think God will reveal that to anybody that's intellectually honest and wants to pursue the truth. But most people don't want to pursue the truth. They just want to live in the world that we live in, which is everybody's nose in a screen. Like, and you're watching it now. Like things that, if I say something is wrong, it's hate speech against, whatever.
But honestly, man, it's the question that gets asked, because like you can spew conspiracies in this barbershop all day and people will
only because I own it.
But at the same time,
if I was at Hudson Hawk, they'd tell and that's not a not a stab on Hudson Hawk, but if you worked in any other shop and the owner disagreed with what you were saying, they'd be like, you're not allowed to talk about that anymore. That's even, like
That's part of the reason I like this barbershop is exactly what you just said and exactly what's happening right now. All right, this is the beauty of this place. When you come to Branson, get your hair cut here. All right.
But also, I was saying, like, those clients can just have just as much power over you than you do over them, even though you own this barbershop. Because this is your business, and you need them in return. You get a pastor that walks in here. I got to watch my language. I can't say bad words and stuff like that because that pastor has a following. And he's like, you know what? People in my church, you shouldn't go to Lost Boys anymore. Because they said something I didn't agree with. They said some nasty things I didn't agree with. And the thing is, like, regardless of what you're talking about when it comes to conspiracies, like, I wasn't big on conspiracies when I came to this barbershop. But I listened.
I wasn't either until
I listened to you, and I didn't even expect you to be religious from the way I saw you right off the bat. I thought I saw the A sign up there, and I thought you were a dang anarchist. I was like, okay, I got all the tattoos, the gauges, and stuff like that. I did not expect you to be a man of God. It can be misconstruing sometimes who someone represents, And right here in Lost Boys, we don't stereotype. We're all men. We're all common men here. And the thing I see in clients when they sit here and you're talking about a conspiracy, as much as they might disagree with you, you've got the spotlight. Whether it's me talking, whether it's Dylan talking, whether it's someone, they listen. They gain insight. And as much as they might not believe it, they still ask the question.
Well, and then that's what I think is important is like, even when you look at Christ, going back to the Bible, like most of what he did was ask people questions to make them question. And so I think, like, I used to have a question mark tattooed on my hand for that reason, is like in a conversation, if you can get somebody to actually question what they believe, but like in a way, like you give them like a little bit and you get them to start questioning. If, again, going back to what I said, if there is a pursuit of truth, then you've planted a seed that would make them pursue truth. And my ultimate goal is for people to find God. But what you were saying is what you're saying about, like, my thing is being respectful to people in here and speaking truth and love, because I think that there is a way of talking about something that somebody might, like, starkly disagree with what I'm saying, but if you're doing it from a place of love and you are trying to speak the truth, which, not to get super philosophical, but that's what I think is wrong, and I fault myself for being scared to. We're at a place in history where we're scared to step on anybody else's toes, and we've been that way for a while, so the truth is being suppressed to where, like, we're scared to speak the truth because what if it offends? What if it hurts this person's feelings? And it's like,
I don't wear a tinfoil hat, but if I were to take over a nation, man.
And that's the thing. That's what I love about this barbershop. We can be unafraid to express ourselves no matter which way.
Yeah, but like on the language thing, like, I cuss like a sailor dude. I literally work on a fishing boat.
I'm not saying in demeanor, but in belief, in belief. Because we can express ourselves, we can give out our interpretations of what we think. I'm not talking about just joshing around, talking about whatever, offending, whatever. Like crude things, cursing. Yeah. I'm talking about you as a man. We all come from different backgrounds, different lifestyles. You got a blue collar worker over here. You got a guy that works for freaking timeshare over here, man. You got a crackhead in the corner over there.
You got a cop next to him. You got a pastor. You got a pimp.
Everyone from different walks of life. But when you walk into the barbershop, we're all at the same level, man. No one's above or below you. Like, even the barber, as you stand above your client, you're at the exact same level as they are. They listen to you, you listen to them.
Well, that's where I've told you guys this before, but that's why, to me, this is like my church. Like, this is a place where, like, you go to church and everybody puts on their Jesus mask or whatever and wants to act like everything's hunky-dory, and you feel like you have to perform for whoever's around you and make sure that, like, you say the right thing, don't cuss, don't let them know. And like in here, that's what I think is beautiful about the space, is it's like everybody, like, they don't come in, and even like you were saying about me, like, people look at me and think that it's like, oh, I can say whatever the fuck I want in front of this guy because, like, he clearly is like, he's not going to judge me, and I don't judge people, but then I'll have a conversation with somebody over the course of a year or two, or maybe it's that, like, whatever I feel led to speak, I feel like I have the opportunity, all of us have the opportunity to have somebody come in, sit down, it's just for a haircut, you get to know and relate to this person, and then if there's a time where you feel led to speak something that you feel is true, or this person's opened up to you, like you have their, like you're their friend.
You learn from them. Well, it's like,
and learn at the same time, like learn from other people.
Before we get too deeper, I do want to hear Mr. Max's thoughts about aliens. I do also have a question to follow up with you about this, but you haven't spoke yet too much, so let's hear about aliens.
The alien topic. Okay.
UFOs, aliens.
Kind of like what Tyler said, it honestly, my whole perspective changed actually when I became a part of this shop. My thing with aliens from the beginning was, I mean, honestly, I was full-heartedly a believer of them. They're out there. There can't be more than just us. You know, there's that quote, I don't know what's scarier, us being alone or not be. And that always kind of sat with me, because I mean, honestly, yeah, like if there is more out there, that is a terrifying thing. And I kind of saw it as the vice versa of, you know, what if, once again, if there are or isn't, if aliens are even that bad. You know, they could be just normal people like us that just look, talk different. But then, honestly, within the last year, I've been here at the shop for about 4.5 years now, and within about the last year, really I've started to kind of feel this connection and calling towards Christ and the Lord, and reading the Bible and becoming more biblically informed into that sense, and especially talking with Michael and his following, or you know, the group that comes around to our Bible studies. It is definitely becoming more along the lines of fallen angels, or more angelic species, not necessarily demonic. I don't want to necessarily see something I don't know as a bad presence. For me, I'm very open to a lot, and I see everything as a blank slate. You know, whether you look different, talk different, or can do magic or voodoo, like, you know, I'm gonna take it with open arms, if you will, kind of take it with a grain of salt, and just kind of feel it out, if you will. But I mean, as kind of going back to the question on just thoughts on aliens, like, definitely think they're out there. If they're as bad as we say it is, or think they are, I don't think it's quite terrible. The one thing I always kind of circle back to when it comes to aliens is what we would do if we went to another area of existence that had species living. And that's where I kind of fight, because, and I know full-heartedly as Americans, if we were to go out and find another species amongst life,
Kill, steal, and destroy.
exactly. We're gonna pillage, we're gonna rape, we're gonna steal and take back and dissect. It's the unknown. We want to learn. We want to know everything about it. So even as terrible as it sounds, like, if there are aliens, they're probably doing the same thing that we're doing. You know, they just want to learn. They want to see what we're about. They want to see why we live, what we live for, why we act how we do. You know, and you know, at least with me, once again, if I were to go out to another species, I wouldn't fully want to let everyone know I'm present. Want to see everything and everybody all pointing the cameras and photos at me. You know, I would definitely try to keep it as low burner as possible while still trying to do
Right.
You know,
If you can't beat them, join them.
It's a weird thought.
It's a weird thought once you start thinking about two different things. I mean, because this is what I've come up with. Everybody in this group here, basically, you might not be able to define it, but you basically believe that there is something that is aliens. You might not be able to define or actually believe you know exactly what it is, but you can define that. But in doing that, it's very simple to understand that, okay, by saying that I believe this, I also then am saying that, hey, I believe that they have advanced technology, craft that they're flying around in, correct?
Right.
Yeah.
You're saying that in essence. Now, you know, and Michael, to your point, it's very interesting. You talk about the connection between demons and aliens, fallen angels, if you will. Maybe not, if you can parse out, maybe fallen angels and demons are two different things. You're saying fallen angels perhaps are these aliens.
Yeah. I think there's good and bad.
So are there good angels that are flying around in spacecraft too?
Well, and that's, I think that there is definitely, you know, like a spiritual word talks about it biblically. Like there are angels that are with the Lord, and there are like fallen angels, which we perceive as demons, or which I think if you really dive into that topic, it's a lot deeper than even just that. Like you have, you know, the Watchers, you have the Anunnaki, or the giants, like we talked about in Enoch, and then you have that like some people will say, or I've heard that, you know, when this hybrid race was created, when they were slain, that you have these spirits or entities that couldn't go up and they couldn't go down, and so like that's where you have like these demons that like when you hear about like demonic possession, like they need a host to be able to
the
come
roaming
into.
Spirits of the Nephilim.
Yes, and so then, but then there's also like, I think other entities, and I think all, like, it depends on how deep you want to go into it. Like you know, like I read the list through like topics we could talk about. You know, you've got hollow earth, like what you've got. If it was a flat plane, like what's beyond, like, and so outer space could actually just be outer space. Like it doesn't, like everybody perceives it's like, oh, we're on a ball, you have to go up. You know, where is God? Where, like, if we're in space and it's, you know, infinitely outwards, 360 degrees, like every direction. Whereas what if it's like, you know, God's up here, you have these other entities that are beyond out this way, or like the hollow earth theory, where it's maybe they're subterranean, maybe it's aquatic, like where they, like most of these UFO things, it's, you know, a lot of them, they're out above the ocean, and these things just like either will come up out of the water or dive down. Like I don't know, on that topic, for me, that's what I think. I think aliens are just, it's spiritual. That's what I think.
So do you, and you know,
do I think that they have craft? Yeah, like because if you read Enoch, it talks about these angelic hosts teaching men how to do all these things, like how to mine precious metals, how to use makeup, how to make swords, and it's like you then to go into that a little bit too. It's like you look at what are the 7 deadly sins, or things that we're not supposed to do. You have lust, you have greed, you have, you know, like murder, like all these things. And so when you look at what was taught to humanity of knowledge they weren't supposed to know, what are the things that have created these sins? And it's like, okay, they taught them how to make weapons. Well, what are weapons for? They're for killing people. Why do women need to make themselves more beautiful? It's like, well, they want a desire or a lust for men to find them more sexually attractive. What is mining precious metals for? Okay, well, now you have more wealth, and you have greed, and you're able to lord over, you know, other people because you're superior. So again, my perspective on all of this stuff is it's all spiritual and has been from the very beginning. And where we're at now is you have people or governments that I think have been in communication with these things for a long time, like since the beginning of time. That's Enoch, like all the way to present. And if these people that are in power can get secret information or sacred information, make some deal with these people to not give that out to the masses, then it gives them power and superiority over everything else. But I think eventually we're coming to a point where, you know, maybe these entities are like, no, like we're coming out of the shadows. Like, and we've given you your time, now it's our time, and we're going to, you know, reveal ourselves. And what is that? I mean, like you could go on. Like I love this stuff, man. Like you can get into CERN. What is CERN doing?
Almost,
Well, and that's
100%.
That's what I was about to say, dude.
Like that's what, like we're going through Revelation in the Bible study right now.
Literally going through Revelations right now, and it is so scary, especially being somebody that has not dove deep into the Bible or read the entire Bible. And I mean, honestly, us digging into Revelations is probably the most I've actually broken down the Bible. And dude, that shit is terrifying.
Yeah.
When it's all like, and they want to say it's all like for my whole life, it's like, oh well, this is metaphorical. It's like poetic.
Right.
This stuff isn't actually gonna happen. But some of the stuff in there, I'm like,
shit,
bro, I think like
up.
this is like could actually be more literal than people want to admit.
Right.
And
that's a
you know,
scary
like
thing right there.
When people talk about, you know, like from these locusts that are going to come out of the ground, that, you know, or this seven-headed dragon, or like it's crazy. Like it's,
and it could
just
all
from
be
a poetic
symbolic,
standpoint.
you know, in a way.
Well, and that's what I'm saying is that's what it's always been depicted as. And I'm not saying that it's all literal, but the more you go, when I looked at Revelation as a child, it terrified me. When I look at it as an adult with kids, it still kind of terrifies me, but it also is crazy because I know every society has probably thought that they were living in the latter day. You know what I mean? Like
I literally think we are now.
We are, because like when you look at technology, talking about AI, talking about like I sent it to a couple people today, and I'd seen this about a week ago. Like even Neuralink, before I ever saw that, like you look at what is Neuralink? What is the mark of the beast? This is a chip, you know, something that will either go into you'll take the mark on your forehead or in your right hand, and you look at where we're at. Before, it says if you take the mark, you won't be able to buy, sell, or trade. Well, before you could always trade or buy or sell, but when everything goes digital, and if you want to keep up with the Joneses or be connected to everything that's going on, you look at what Neuralink is. And this video that I watched today is literally talking about like when you look in, is it gematria or whatever, like you type this in on like what is, you know.
I feel like maybe you can almost like perceive it as like a probe of spiritualness.
Well, like numerology, like you look at that stuff and you type it into this thing, it, like Neuralink, literally like the number, because every word has a number, like it comes out to a number, and Neuralink literally comes out to 666. And it's the number of a man. And if you type in, I could be wrong on this one, but I'm pretty sure they even typed in like Elon Musk, and it's like the same thing. It's 666.
And that's the one thing we're all looking out for right now, because there is a certain man that's going to come and make his presence on earth, and people will praise.
Dude, I've been saying that for like the last 5 years of us being open. I was like, if anybody was going to be like an antichrist figure without like going, you know, like trying to sound crazy, I was like, it'd be somebody like Elon Musk. It's not going to be Donald Trump. It's not going to be Obama. It's going to be someone that, like, first you had the left that loved this dude. Now they hate him because he's for free speech. Now you have the right that loves this dude, and they're so far up his ass. Yeah, and it's like, then there's going to be like a cohesion of, do you want to be intelligent? Do you want to be, like, you get Neuralink and you have access to all information at all time, and that's, you get into AI, and AI is like,
it's almost like offering the apple of Eve. Like, you want.
Well, look at the logo of freaking Macintosh, dude. It's an apple with a bite taken out of it.
Yeah.
Like, what you think that was? Like, you think that was by accident? That like that's the logo?
Like, bro,
it's all
that's
symbolism.
all our phones right now in our pocket, dude.
Yeah,
We're all
and they're listening. They're, you know. Like
but I'll tell you, guys, this is what is so cool about this spot. Now, we probably need to come back and do this again, because we haven't even scratched the surface. But I do want to say just a couple things, because it's very interesting to me, and I've done so much research on this, and I do believe that there are so many stories that are out there that are so subtly close to the reality that I believe is a reality, but it's just slightly twisted, slightly twisted, so as to make it very believable, but not the truth. We talk about the Anunnaki. Well, you know what? Probably you can look at the Bible and say, okay, the Anunnaki is from Sumerian legends and brought down through Mesopotamia. It's the Watchers that came down in Genesis 6 that you see in the book of Enoch. Okay, when these Watcher angels came down and they lusted after the women, and they had babies, they had offspring. Those offspring were half angelic and half human, and they created hybrids. They called them the Nephilim. That's in the Bible, the Nephilim. You go on, you read later on in Enoch and whatnot that these were hybrid creatures. They were giants, and they literally consumed everything. Okay, and God sent down the angel to have them literally fight against each other to destroy themselves. Clash of the Titans. Clash of the Titans.
Exactly.
That's a great
Right, which you see in Greek mythology, Roman mythology, all this stuff. Why did in the Bible, I heard people say so many times, man, God in the Old Testament was a real jerk. Why is he sending people into this land and kill every man, woman, child, baby, and livestock? That's terrible, God. Was he genocidal? Well, no, he did that because these groups of people and the animals, by the way, the Nephilim is not just associated.
It's chimera.
Animal hybrids, plant hybrids. He sent them in because these people were still genetically not pure, not human. And I think you've got to step back and understand that in this battle for your soul, as you said, I think that there also comes a moment which does get scary in recent things that maybe happened around the 2020s. I think that there's a battle for your soul, but I think that the battle is also for you. If I can make you not human, if I can have some sort of genetic modification where you are no longer human and no longer redeemable. That's what was happening in the Old Testament. That's why God said, hey, you got to get rid of these. That's why we're going to bring a flood, because everything has been corrupted genetically. Genetically, we started out with Adam and Eve. They were pure. It was genetically perfect. All right, sin comes in, and that's whenever people actually genetically were affected to the point that you're not going to live forever anymore. This is a battle.
I've been reading Jubilee. Have you ever read Jubilees before? So I've been reading through that, and it's been fascinating seeing just little things that I've had questions on. Like one of them was, it was talking about, how did the serpent actually lie to them because God said, if you eat of the fruit, surely that day you will die, and it literally talks about how that's the reason why Adam died at 975 or whatever it was, because a day to God is 1,000 years, whatever that verse is that talks about that. But they bring that up, and there's little things like that it's all that stuff it's fascinating.
Well, what's fascinating, and but not so much fascinating, but again, read this stuff and understand how, everything I just said. Well, there are accounts that are very popular in modern society. The Anunnaki, that's the big hit right now, okay? That's the big hit that's being pushed on Ancient Aliens and everything else. And that they're coming back. We are literally being set up to believe that these Anunnaki are coming back, okay? And when they do, people aren't going to be surprised, because you know what? We've been indoctrinated to believe that they're coming back. But I do believe, and maybe we'll just close it out here, we do have to get to do this again, though. But we are, and just watch it in your everyday life and just kind of pick up on the nuance of it. We are being programmed to be not shocked, whenever
Frog in the pot.
these aliens come back, full disclosure. And if we find out that they're Anunnaki or that they came and at one point seeded the earth or whatnot, you know what? We're prepared to believe that that's the truth.
Yeah.
But I promise you this. I'm a Christian. I've done a lot of research through this, through the lens of that, but also trying to be intellectually honest about stuff and reading all the information about the Anunnaki and Nibiru and you know, all this stuff, the spiritual realm and hauntings and everything. But believe me when I say, and this will I mean, I'm not a prophet, I'm not that, but if we come to a point where the aliens come back, full disclosure, think of how easy it would be to unite the world under one religion or one guise or whatever, but under one person, if they were to say, listen, we're the powerful race that created you, we are alien. I want you to understand we're here and we're here to help you. All right, we're going to get you straightened out. But you got to understand there's another alien race that's coming. Yeah. All right? And if we don't unite 1,000% against them, they are going to destroy you.
And that's God.
Yes, and it's God. And whenever the rapture happens, that's the perfect time for this person to come in and say, we came in, we stopped them. They were going to take everyone. Those people are dead, by the way. They were going to take everyone. We stopped them. And we can still stop them, but man, we got to unite. Yep. I mean, these are the kind of things that are just being set up to happen. Yep. All right? And whenever listen, I don't want anybody who doesn't believe in God or the Bible or anything like that. I don't want to push that on you or in any way, shape, or form. But I want you to step back and understand that there are so many parallels in all this stuff. If we're just intellectually honest about stuff, that you can say, hey, never knew that before. Yeah. Because it's all in there. And it's very interesting to me as I get through this and just research, and I try to research all the sides so I can understand where I'm coming from, but it's all connected, interconnected, and as you step even further back, not just aliens, but AI. Yeah. Not just AI, but modern day weather patterns, modern day HARP, all these different things that are going on right now, because I do believe we are in the end times. It's pretty incredible.
And it talks about all that stuff too, like that there will be natural disasters everywhere, like all of it. Like there'll be famines,
we're in it to win it right now.
Yeah. Like
we're basically we are in the greatest depression of American history. This is even worse than the actual Great Depression that went on back then. And even then, you take that into account. You take the bias flooding, the weather pattern, everything. It's.
And we're standing on a thin line of what's
linear.
Real and what's not real anymore. So if a rapture were to happen, I would even question if it's actually real. If it's not even
absolutely.
We have so much AI going on in front of our minds. We see it on Facebook, it's just another AI image.
Yeah, or who's to say
there's nothing going on?
Chinese,
nothing,
whatever. Yeah. So, well, listen, guys, man. This has been fun. I appreciate it. We just have to do this again sometime.
I'm down, man.
Part 2 coming to you soon.
I will say this, though. If you're coming to Branson, come on out, see Legends in concert or whatnot, but come without a haircut and then come in here and hang out and just experience what just happened. Because it's like this all the time. These are great guys.
Hear your conspiracy.
For real.
Yeah. So if you get a chance, come on down to the Lost Boys Barbershop, Barber Company, here in Hollister, Missouri. I'll leave some information how to get a hold of you, get an appointment, go to the website and all that. Sorry that we missed some of the other fellas. Maybe we'll get them in more later on, but this has been a lot of fun, guys. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you having us.
Man. Yeah, for real.
Sure.
Thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for tuning in, folks. Coming to you live from the Lost Boys Barbershop. Cheers. I had so much fun recording this episode. Special thanks to Michael Jung, the owner, and for Sal, Max, and Tyler for joining in. You guys rock. Now, next time you come to Branson, make the time to stop by the shop and get an amazing haircut and enjoy the conversation. And by the way, tell them I sent you. If you enjoy the Ryan Files, please be sure to smash the subscribe button below, and please stop by the RyanFiles.com. Buy one of our t-shirts while you're there, or join our community by clicking Become an Agent, where you will be connected with my Patreon page. Check it out. Your support means everything. Thank you. And next week is a big one, friends. I've talked to so many other podcasters out there, and I know how important it is to get popular guests on the show. I'm so thankful to announce that next week, Peggy Hubbard will be joining the Ryan Files. She is awesome. Stay amazing out there, my friends. Your charge this week is to do something unexpectedly nice for someone else, and to have an open mind and listen to people. You don't have to agree to hear what someone is saying. Be awesome and stay curious out there, my friends, and I will see you next week right here for a special Peggy Hubbard interview edition of The Ryan Files.
The Ryan Files.
So I'll do an intro and an outro there.
Yeah.
That was awesome.
Yeah, it was.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. Listen, I don't know. This is the first time doing that. So if anything goes wrong, I'll fix it and edit it out and whatnot. But it might be 2 weeks before I get actually done. All right, everybody, pull it out, hit the up button, and then hit the middle button, which will stop the recording.
Okay.